Oh, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll continue doing my bit. I'm going to continue doing my bit as long as there's a war on. It's kind of a return to my political roots, being anti-war. That's what I was. That's how I first got involved in understanding politics and what gave me my endless truth-seeking need was opposing what the Americans were doing back in the 2000s. And I mean, like, seriously being opposed to them. I've only ever been in one. You know, one day when the MI5 catch up with me and decide I'm a dangerous subversive, they'll probably dig up files somewhere as to find out, has this guy got any political affiliations? And they'll say, yes, he has. Who is he affiliated to? And it'll come back. George Galloway. What? It's like, yeah, this guy is a member of Respect and the Stop the War Coalition. Really? It's like, yeah. You know, those being called out now as being pro-Putin. It's like, there was once upon a time, I've mentioned this in a previous video, where Jeremy Corbyn and Diane Abbott and George Galloway were probably the three biggest anti-war campaigners in this country, and they were actually really good at that. It was when you asked them to leave that space. They were great activists. They were great anti-war activists. And when Corbyn got pushed to the front of the Labour Party, he was trapped in what he could and couldn't do or say. But, you know, Jeremy Corbyn knows a lot more than what he ever let on when he was leader of the Labour Party. He knows a lot more. A whole lot more. As to where, you know, they can make him look bad because he went to a memorial service for a member of Black September. Well, it was a different place back then. Then the rampant, murdering, out-of-control superpower that needed to be curtailed, if not destroyed, was the United States of America. I was an avid anti-American, although many of my friends were Americans. I actually love American people by and large. Excellent. They taught me things that I didn't know. The Americans. I found Americans to be like, we kind of call them backwards because they're not so progressive in this country. They'd say they were backwards because they're not progressive, because they're not PC in America. And it's like straight talking Americans and straight talking English people. It's like, I say to people, you know, we're gaming. It's like, oh, we need to get some Americans playing. Whatever game we're playing, we need to get some Americans. It's like, why? It's like, nah, you can't have a game. It can't be a good game without Americans. We were there. We were here from the start together. John Witunski, if you're watching, I'm easy to get in contact with. I'd love to have a word. I want to know what you know, John. I want to take you back in time and let's talk about all that time you spent in Iraq and the 2 Gulf Wars you fought in. Because, you know, once upon a time, United States was the big bad guy in the world. And it's not so long ago. I only stopped being a sort of a fervent anti-American when Trump came up. Up until then, I saw America as an out-of-control fucking maniac at the controls. And there was a good case to say that the end of the Cold War was the worst thing that ever happened. Why? Because the Russians had the ability to keep American aggression in check. And there's part of me that says, oh my God, the birds have come home to roost. And then there's me being a bit older than probably most of you guys. Longer memory. Longer, certainly, in the circles of the peace movement. Although being in the peace movement got me in quite a lot of trouble. Too many fucking hippies. Too many fucking psychos. And an ineffectual movement because the dismissive of warfare. And it's like, I know if you want to be anti-war, you need to know every single in and out of warfare. You want to be able to talk about it as much as you can. You need to be able to have a thorough understanding of what this is that we're trying to avoid. So it's like I can sit there for an hour and tell you tales of hell on earth. I've never been to war, but I've been to hell. So I know something of war. As to have you seen that message that guy sent? That so-called, what was it? A Reddit mercenary. This video, I'll find it real quick. I'll see if I can find it. I was going to show you this actually. Actually, we'll show you this. This is a trailer for a documentary that won all kinds of awards in 2008, right? And if you've never seen this and you're an American or you want to know something about what's gone on in history in the last 20 years, you need to watch this. You need to understand that when Biden says that Putin is isolated, he's on his own, he hasn't got a friend in the world, that is a lie. And it's actually NATO that doesn't have a friend in the world. It's like you're the last show in town. It's like from all over the world right now who've suffered under American aggression and imperialism and atrocity that we're cheering the Russians on right now. Cheering them. And it's like, well, where will they be cheering them? Southeast Asia? China? United States? Russia? Middle East? Africa? South America? They'll be rooting for Putin. It is America who are isolated. It is America who are alone. And their allies are going to suffer for it. Because there can't be a NATO without a strong America, and there is no strong America because you've got a maniac in charge of the country. And a lot of these evil fucking neocon thugs who used to be in power in the States, well, they've all moved on. The past is new, and the new ones who've replaced them pretend they never existed. I'm going to show you this documentary. If you want to watch it, you'll have to find it somewhere using your creative sense, using your common sense. Because it's not on YouTube, but hey, the trailer is. It's been there for 14 years. Do you know about this story?
On December 5, 2002, Dilawar, a young Afghan taxi driver, was brought to Bagram. 5 days after his arrival, he was dead.
A U.S. major ticked the box for homicide. I said, my God, they've killed him.
It became plausible to me that this man wasn't even guilty of anything, and he was murdered in detention.
Put people in a crazy situation and people do crazy things.
People were being told to rough up Iraqis that wouldn't cooperate. We were also told they're nothing but dogs.
Interrogators were telling the guards, strip this guy naked, chain him up to the bed in an uncomfortable position, do whatever you can.
You had these young soldiers with very little training, just as the rules were changing, and they weren't told what the new rules were.
You start looking at these people as less than human, and you start doing things to them you would never dream of. And that's where it got scary.
It was only the night shift. There's always a few bad apples.
The brass knew. They saw him shackled and hooded, and they said, right on, y'all are doing a great job.
There were emails from FBI personnel down at Guantanamo say, you won't believe what's going on down here. We've got to disassociate ourselves.
You have no right to a lawyer. You have no right to witnesses. You don't.
Yeah, that. This is what they were like. This is the Bush government. This is Republicans in charge of the country. So-called Republicans. And what's that guy saying? We need to disassociate ourselves from this. Not be a question of, oh my God, we need to change things dramatically and we need to find the people responsible for this and make an example of them and show them that this kind of murder and brutality and torture of suspects is unacceptable in view of the fact that these people are civilians. And we don't do courts. We just snatch people off the street and torture them until they tell us what they've got to say. And then we either do or don't let them go. We actually make an arbitrary decision whether this person's a terrorist or not, regardless of what he tells us. And if his face fits, well, he makes up the numbers, send him to Guantanamo. What? Oh yes, this went on. And the reaction from the brass there is obviously, we need to disassociate ourselves from this. Not, oh, we've been found out. We need to do something about this. This is unacceptable behaviour from what is supposedly the moral champion of the fucking world, which they always project. But it's like the level of atrocity carried out by the Bush era and the Obama era American governments was beyond the pale, staggering, astonishing when you compared it to what the media was saying. So it's like early internet, we've got alternate sources of information then, and it's a matter of there was a spate of like very, very respected journalists, like real top guys. And when this war on terror broke out, they all lost their jobs. They all migrated to the internet because it became the party line. Britain is massively on the hook for all this shit as well, because we enabled it. In fact, it was Tony Blair's lies that made it happen. So it's like we're on the hook. You wonder why this was a security state and still is to some degree because of the war on terror. Do you not think they had a reason to be afraid? It's not to do with these. They always say it's about ideology. Oh, dangerous, radical ideology. We've got to do something about it. It's like, no. You've got a problem with people seeking revenge against you for what you've done to them. Seeking revenge, seeking a measure of justice. And you'll always get that as long as you're carrying out atrocities. If you kill a wife, the husband will come and kill you. If you kill his children, he will come and kill you. He will give his life to get revenge. And this is what goes on. This is what we see. But they always call it something different. They always say, oh, we've got to do something about this dangerous, radical ideology. And it's a matter of, no, you've brutalized so many people that they've got blood vendettas against you. And they hate you and they want a measure of revenge. That's what this is. That's what's been going on. That's why we had this nonsense of the security state in this country where they put up millions of cameras. Abandoned policing in order to protect infrastructure. So it's like our community policing and sorting crimes out just immediately went for a shit. And then you go to Victoria Station in Manchester and there's 40 or 50 police there and they're searching people, patting people down. And it's like, aren't you guys doing any police work anymore? And it's a matter of, no, things have changed now. The terror alert's gone up to severe. And they used it to fucking terrorise and brutalise and tax us and curtail our freedoms. They used it as a weapon against us. So we got it at home at the same time as these fucking poor bastards in Iraq and Afghanistan were having the tool taken to them. It's like they got themselves involved in some of the fucking dirtiest wars that have ever been fought, where their enemy became so desperate that the methods became absolutely brutal. And it was atrocity leading to atrocity leading to atrocity. But it's like, what was the first atrocity? Oh, when those American bombs fell on Baghdad, when they just blasted the crap out of the place. Russia, believe it or not, is showing a great deal of restraint in the Ukraine. Far more respect and restraint than the US ever had for the people of Iraq or Afghanistan. Far more. It's like there's a birds coming home to roost thing as to where Biden is lying and Putin doesn't stand alone. America does. And you know, this could be what's going on now. It could be the birds coming up to home to roost and the complete redress of the power dynamics of the world, and a massive challenge to American so-called hegemony. And as I was talking to a chappie earlier on who pointed it to me as something I'd picked up on as well, is the American status as the reserve currency of the world. I think that might have just ended. I think Biden might have just flushed that when he cut off Russia and forced them to ally with the Chinese. So it's a matter of, hang on a minute, who else is lined up with Russia? Oh, India. Pakistan. Pakistan was supposedly an ally of the US. You know why they were an ally of the US? Because the logistics train for Afghanistan used to come in at the port of Karachi, and the US used to have to pay an absolute fortune for security in the port of Karachi, and then also convoy escort up the Khyber Pass, up the most dangerous stretch of fucking highway in the world. And it's not because it's a rough road, it's because it's bandit country. And if you want your vehicles to get up there unfettered, you have to pay massive bribes. And it'd be a matter of, the US has been paying criminals in Pakistan protection money for the logistics train. And it was a situation they couldn't get past because these people had the ability to ambush them, blow up an oil tanker, boom. It used to go on all the time. Like 15, 16 years ago, you used to regularly see and hear reports that American convoys had been attacked on the Khyber Pass and destroyed. And that was always a message from the warlords saying, we want more bribe money, we want more money. So it's like when Biden pulls straight out of there, well, there's no need to pay him off anymore, is there? All that extra income that was coming into the port of Karachi from all that shipping ceased. So it's like, where's ours? We've become dependent on you. You moving your operations out of here, you've left a big hole in our economy. What about us? What are you doing for us? It's like, and now we've got a. They're up to it in their eyeballs, the Pakistanis, to be quite honest. And as well as that, the right hand doesn't really know what the left hand's doing, because it's like Pakistan in itself is cut into loads of different tribal areas. It's not really a country. It's all old India. So it's like, the people of the north, they're not so keen on us. The people in the south like our money. There's a sort of rural north and an industrial south in Pakistan. The industrial south likes the money. The rural north likes the money as well. So it's like America went into business with the drug dealers in Afghanistan in order to guarantee the safety of their equipment. Did you know that? So when they disappeared and stopped paying them, so when Biden shows weakness and Afghanistan becomes a clusterfuck on the northern border of Pakistan, a destabilised, dangerous place, and there's no fucking, no border to speak of. So it's like you've potentially caused either a headache for all the locals by abandoning Afghanistan because it's a humanitarian disaster and it's landlocked. So it's like, who are the neighbours of Afghanistan? Well, Russia and Pakistan. They've been left a bag of shit to hold by Biden, the way he just pulled out. A big bag of shit. So, on the day when the war against Ukraine starts, Imran Khan, Vladimir Putin, signed a trade agreement for the supply of oil, gas and grain. Right. How does that work? So you've got it where, the narcissistic Americans who were only ever the hero or the victim in their leadership caste, elite, narcissistic, weak. They're either the hero or the victim in every single story they ever tell anybody. And there's a pattern to it. It's an old pattern. It's something that pattern be something that I've been watching for 20 years. You're either the hero or the victim, aren't you? So Pakistan, it's like, it could be said that you left us with a bag of shit to hold and you're no longer paying us. So it's in our best interest, bearing in mind where in the world we are, for our ally to be Russia and not you. So you can forget all your arms sales to us, because we're now going to buy our gear off Russia. And you've got India. Well, India and Pakistan don't particularly get on, but the thing that they've got going for them is they are very populous places, and that means mouths to feed. So it's like, to have friendly trading relations with India is like, oh my God, look at all those millions and millions of, hundreds of millions of consumers. Make a close trading agreement with China, billions. So it's like, hang on a minute, there's more to this. What about these BRIC nations? BRIC? What? Yeah, like Brazil, Russia. Brazil? Yeah, they're a trading partner of Russia. With Venezuela? Yeah, they're a trading partner of Russia. I don't know where Argentina stands. That place hasn't been swallowed up by coup or revolutionary sort of uprising since the 1980s. But I'd be pretty sure that all these nations in South America who've been routinely fucked by US corporations like Dole and the like, fruit growers, Coca-Cola even. Coca-Cola are like a gang in South America. Go and find the old documentaries about what Coca-Cola were up to in South America as to where people get in their way, dead. Water thieving. People trying to unionise the factories being assassinated and stuff like that. It's like, who the fuck are these people? And it'd be, oh, well, these are the American corporations and their proxies in these different countries. And it's a matter of, well, their proxies are generally people who can get the job done. What do you mean? Gangsters and criminals. It's like with the old sort of narcissism. Makes people very bad judges of character. They tend to see themselves in others instead of judging people. So it's like America have made some of the most brutal allies in the world and created half of their own enemies by being very poor judges of character, by arming randomers. Created most of the threats in the world through blind stupidity and not listening to anybody. And it'd be endemic. The only exception to this was when Trump took over. I'm like, oh, wow, this could be amazing. Maybe America will be the place that it says it is and not the out-of-control rogue superpower that's accusing everybody else of being a rogue nation. And it's like, well, they're a rogue nation. Remember that? Rogue nation. They're a rogue nation. They don't have any rights. They don't deserve any mercy. They're not even human in the case of poor people in Iraq and Afghanistan. They're not even human. They're like dogs. Racism, anybody? Racism, anyone? It's like state by policy, US, the most racist country in the world. Why? Well, when they went and occupied foreign countries, if you were a raghead or a camel jockey, sand nigger, all common names used as slang for the enemy who can't be named, as to if we go to war with Russia, we'll be fighting against Ivan. Fighting against zombies, we're fighting against Zach. Well, World War Z reference there, which is a thing, isn't it? Where it's the Z, World War Z, and be the symbol of support for the war effort in Ukraine. Z. Do you not see that there's no coincidence in that? World War Z. It's like, you ever read World War Z? If you've never read it, go and read it. Quite a thing. Quite a thing. Quite a clever piece of work. No mystery to me as to why the movie rights to that book were sold for as much as they were, and then they didn't have the guts to actually tell the story. Go and read it. If you don't know anything about the world as was in like 2000, you read World War Z, you might find out something you didn't know about it. As to America are a rogue nation, the United Kingdom are a rogue nation. It's like they will do violence with fucking bombs based on lies just so they can do it. Tony Blair, while the world is in flux, there's a unique, what's the word? Opportunity to seize to seize the narrative and to create a new world. And he's obsessed with democracy, and it's a matter of, oh, so you'll always win. Really? It's like, yeah, it's as well. The people who tend to do well against you guys have got leaders who can't be voted out of power. Part of the reason why they've got leaders that can't be voted out of power is so you can't subvert their elections and destroy their country. Because you're good at that, aren't you, America? You're good at regime change, you're good at causing coups, you're good at assassinating people as well. Really good at it. So I see what is a sort of a redress of the balance. What I said, somebody asked me a question, he says, why have Russians got the moral imperative? I'm like, so I left a list, right, of why Russia's got the moral imperative. And it's like, it's not that I agree with them, it's that I can see their point of view, and I can see that there's good reasons why they're not going to surrender. And there's good reason to believe that they've got massive amounts of public support for what they're doing, not just in Russia, but in the four corners of the third world. People be cheering on Putin because he's he's redressing the balance of the great Satan. Who's the great Satan, I wonder? Who was it who moved so low in the world as to be called the great Satan? The great Satan, to about half of the population of the world, is the United States of America. And it's like, why is that? I said, well, it's because of all the atrocity and evil thing they've done and all the exploitation, all the murder, fucking rape and pillage and destruction that they've inflicted on usually the civilian populations of all countries all over the world. Be it Vietnam, be it Kosovo, be it Iraq, be it Afghanistan, be it Panama, be it all these little countries where they've pulled off some kind of trick to better suit their interests. And when American interests, by American interests they mean American business interests, and at the same time they've abandoned their responsibility to the world as a sea power in keeping the lines of trade open. They've abandoned their responsibility for being the police of the sea. That's what they're supposed to be. That is the reason why. There's a reason why the Americans have got the petrodollar. And it's because, well, most of this oil, or a great deal of it, is transported by sea on tanker ships, isn't it? Like, there's a lot of tanker ships out in the world and a fucking lot of oil they hold. And it's crude oil, so it's like, it gets refined. By the time you finish whizzing, centrifuging, whizzing crude oil, you've got like 10 times the amount of volume that you first started with. It's so dense. And there's like, again, 1 million derivative products that can be made from every single part of it. Every single bit of what gets dragged out of the ground can be used for one thing or another. So it's like oil. We live by oil. We're fucked without oil. That realisation that oil was the future that they made in like the Bretton Woods Agreement, 46-ish. That realisation that most of the oil in the world is in the future going to come from the Middle East. It'd be a matter of, how will we guarantee this? How do we protect it? Once upon a time, our friends the British would have helped us out on this one, but they appear to have fallen from power. So who now is going to be the guardian of the high seas? And that fell to America. After the Suez Crisis, where America stabbed Britain in the back and abandoned us, allowing a tyrant, NASA. There's people say NASA wasn't a tyrant. I say he fucking was. I say he was a guy who was playing the CIA like fiddles, and them two gay guys, the Dulles brothers, seemed to think that they had him under control, but at the same time the guy was buying arms from Russia. And it's like, who's controlling this guy? Well, Moscow were. They were the one who armed him. The Americans made him rich, but the Russians armed him. They gave him an army, they gave him the means to take the Suez, and then give him the means to wage war against Israel. Israel, the Israeli troubles, are a theatre of the Cold War. But you didn't know that, did you? Becomes pretty obvious when you find out about the 6-Day War and come to realise the three nations that were at war with Israel, Egypt, Jordan and Syria, were all armed by the Russians. They all had Russian tanks. They all had Russian guns. They all had Russian small arms. They all had Russian aircraft. They all had Russian mortars. They all had Russian wire-guided anti-tank missiles. They'd been provided with state-of-the-art Russian tank and aircraft destroying technologies. Look at the Yom Kippur War. Look at the 6-Day War. And he'd be like, why do we pretend this is about territory and religion? When this is a theatre of the Cold War, where the Russians have basically thrown a hand grenade in there and said, here, fucking sort that out. Soviet Union, evil and reckless, power mad, crazy, really dangerous, like a threat to be so paranoid, you see, that they could be rash in their actions. They play the victim. Again, people who are only ever the victim or the hero. You listen to that story of World War II that got made up in the 1970s by the fucking left when they re-politicised Hitler to turn him into a right-wing extremist as opposed to a left-wing extremist, which he was. That 1970s version of it, as to where we've got like the Russian version of history, as to where the Russians great victims but also great heroes. It's like, wow, that's just a psychosis. That's just a story that a narcissist would tell you about the time he lost, but it was unfair, and the time that he won and it was glorious. It's like they were fucking dangerous people and they were deranged. Crazy. Be easy to snuff out. It's actually quite easy to snuff out somebody who's got those kind of emotional, psychological problems. I can be on to you in minutes, if you like that. Minutes, I can be on to you. And be like, oh, right, okay. So now I know that if I tell this person anything that suits their bias, they will believe me. And I understand if I treat them well, they will generally reciprocate. And they'll think I'm brilliant because I treat them well. Because this person's been abused. So if I don't abuse them and I treat them with respect, they're all right with me. There are tricks of the trade when it comes to dealing with wetware that I've been trying to teach people for years, but it seems like people just don't get it yet. So there's ways of manoeuvring, there's ways of pulling strings, and it's like the intelligence services of the world used to know this, but I don't think they do anymore. I think they're wrapped up in their own narcissism. They can't be objective about an emotionally crippled enemy. But I tell you who does understand an emotional crippled enemy. Well, the old Russian elite. Because they used to control their own population like that. They get it. They know how to gaslight. They know how to provoke. They know how to disseminate. They know how to propagandize. And it's like, West is no longer capable of... West is not emotionally stable enough to actually do psychological warfare with the new bloc of China, Russia, Pakistan, India, Afghanistan. A nice land bridge. Putin does not stand alone. just in the sheer weight of bodies. They talk about like Russia's not got the population that it once had. It's like, well, fucking China has. There's one born every second in China. It's like, I think you might be about to see a redress of the balance in the world as to where some of these birds coming on to roost. And it's like, the media can deny the history of this global conflict as much as they like. It'll just mean that when things go tits, they'll act like it's a surprise. And who could be this cruel to us? We're a good people. We never do anything wrong. It's like, to the modern crop of leaders and media people, it seems that they've deleted this disgusting 20 or 30 year episode of American expansionism. They've pretended it didn't happen. Or, well, we don't know about it, so therefore it's not real. Or, it wasn't us, so we're not accountable. Well, people remember. So watch the end of this, clip. So look at the old faces of these people who were the old talking heads of the time. Are any of these people still around? 14 years later. Doesn't appear so.
Really know what the charges are, and you certainly don't know what the secret evidence is against you.
They saw an intentional decision taken at the height of the Pentagon to put out a fog of ambiguity.
We have to work the dark side, if you will. We're going to spend time in the shadows.
What starts at the top of the chain of command drops like a rock down the chain of command.
American values are premised upon the notion of human dignity.
We don't know what revenge is coming down the road.
There will be no outrage.
We don't know what revenge is coming down the road. Might we have an idea now?
Just upon human dignity. It's very vague.
What was that?
Very vague.
Bushy.
Outrages upon human dignity.
Bushy, I refer to this guy as. This is Bushy, because if you live around here, we call him Bushy. And Obama is Bammy. So, Bushy and Bammy. Two people you never hear a fucking peep from. Why? Because they don't want to face questions and answer criticisms of the terrible fucking war crimes they committed. It's like, who'd tell you all this? Maybe the Russians would. They've been keeping score. But hey, then it'd be Russian propaganda, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be what at one time the old left was like putting out there for a fucking Oscar nomination. So the old left has died and been like cannibalized by the woke. And now that the old left has died, we've got no anti-war movement. The woke are numb as fuck and they're emotional and they see atrocity because they don't know anything about that. They're sheltered people. They have first world problems like, people look at me funny, I'm not being respected for who I am. And it's like, try fucking starving to death. Try being abducted by the Americans and being thrown in Guantanamo Bay and never getting to find out what you're accused of. How about that?
It's upon human dignity. It's very vague.
Here's one for you. I'm going to play a tune here. Muse. I used to listen to Muse all the time. They were the biggest rock band in the world in 2011, 2012. Here you go. You had this one. You see Muse, right? This band, do you know what they were focused? They were very political. They used to do songs about, obviously, Matt Bellamy's broken heart and crazy ex-girlfriend, right? But they also made these really, really sort of emotionally charged political records as well. And who were they railing against? the global hegemony of the United States of America. Honestly, they were. And they were the biggest band in the world. It's like this has been going on for a long time. You've heard this. We don't need to have the long instrumental at the end on, but I think you get the point. That's kind of the mic drop. What's the song about? Matthew Bellamy had recently read a book called The Grand Chessboard by Zbigniew Brzezinski. And the formation of the United States of Eurasia was what he saw as the greatest long-term threat, and that American foreign policy had to be one to disrupt that ever coming together, because you've just lost. They've got the population, they've got the resources, and you're no longer a dominant superpower. So it was Brzezinski's plan in the Grand Chessboard that everything possible must be done to make sure that this alliance never actually takes place. So the US has a policy for China, has a policy for Russia, has a policy for Ukraine, as a policy for Georgia, as a policy for Poland. All designed so there can never be a United States of Eurasia. This is a song about it. If you go away and check it out, you go and find out the old clips from 10 years ago and listen to Matthew Bellamy talk. Matthew Bellamy, I think he's kind of lost his mind in recent years, personally. It's like, got out of one bad relationship and then married fucking Goldie Hawn's daughter. And that didn't go too well for him. And it's a matter of, I know how men can hurt, and he hurt like that. And then he hurt like that again. So it's like he's given up the fight. But once upon a time, this guy was really interested. He was the leader of the biggest rock band in the world, and he was really interested as to what we do about our problem. Read this one. I'll love the Muse show. I won't be able to monetize this, or even they might not even let me have it up. You familiar with this one?
Is a fantasy. Policies have risen up and overcome the brave. Greatness dies, unsung and lost, invisible to history. Brainwashing our children to be mean. You don't have long, I am on to you. The time it has come to destroy.
Listen to this guy. He fucking means this. It wails like a fucking banshee. Repeats itself. It's just that twice. But do you get it? It's like goodwill for America ran out decades ago because of what they've done to people. Not just what they've done to Americans. They've done plenty of bad things to Americans, but the things they've done to people in other countries have been obscene. Birds are coming home to roost. I don't like it. I'd rather we had world peace and trade. But we're not going to get that. Why? Because Joe Biden has put America's power, which is its role as world reserve currency in massive jeopardy. I swear we go back to one song ago and it be a matter of, must we do as we're told? And the answer be, no.